to this computer.
That's better.
Okay, over to Michael.
Thank you. You obviously all haven't had enough of me yet. This workshop they probably will have. Thank you very much. I maybe foolishly, when bullied by Steve, made this as a suggestion, and I don't really expect that he'd say yes. So how this is going to work out, I don't really know. But I just want to make it clear it's for your benefit. So we'll do what we can. If we need to change and do different things or it goes in a different direction, that's where it goes. And it's like to try, I suppose, and achieve as much as possible in this space. So PC discipline timing is actually quite a big topic. So first of all, just try to explain what it is. For PC discipline timing, you're actually using the internal clock of the PC as the time source for the timestamps. Now we know that PC time is not that great. It's certainly nowhere near good enough for high precision occultations. So what we do is we discipline the clock following an external time source. So we have to get some external time source that is accurate into the PC, and then there's some software to nudge that PC time closer to that time source. And there's a whole bunch of external time sources that can be done. Now, this is not a problem just for the occultation community. This is basically how any server that needs accurate time has to work. So NTP, Internet Network Time Protocol, is used commonly in industry, in businesses, in commerce, and everything. There's international standards for financial systems, banking systems, power systems, all kinds of things that require time and accuracy to a standard. Often that standard is 1 microsecond or sometimes even better. And NTP and some of these other PC discipline type things are what it's done. So in a server rack at the back, there's going to be some rack that has phone equipment that receives GPS time signals or whatever into a network PC and then distributes the time around that. So this is all standard stuff. It's not novel to us. There's a bunch of time sources that are possible. Network time protocol, that's where you get the time through an internet connection. That's going to be the one that we set up first because it's a really good idea to get that to people. And you can do GPS flash timing, combination of NTP and this, $12 free from the conference bag, which is probably why it works as the crap one. But you can get your GPS flash timing. And this is the unit that the joint observers or IOTA at this stage are using in Japan. And they seem to get very consistent times. So that's the kind of most basic system that you can do. NTP on a laptop, accuracy of the time will depend on a whole variety of things. It could be from a few milliseconds to tens of milliseconds or perhaps worse. So if you want to use it without a GPS flasher, this is what a PC discipline really comes to, then we need a more accurate time service. So a good one is a local GPS server. If you want to get one of those, I know there's a few observers around the world that are using them, including one or two observers in Adelaide. They're reasonably pricey. You can build one from an Arduino if you want. I have one sitting at home. It works. Everything works apart from the Ethernet connection into my computer. So I have spent endless hours trying to get it to work, and it just doesn't work for me. You can buy them starting at about 300 US. GPS PPS receiver, that's what we'll be setting up today. And it's something like this. I promise you there is a GPS unit in there, and then there's a serial converter, and it sends the PPS pulses into the computer via the serial interface. On the inside, and so, apologies to those who are online, I'll just picture the documentation. This is all it is. So Arduino module with a GPS, and it's a serial converter. This is about $7 that's about $7. This is maybe $15 or $20 and a few other bits and pieces. and you've got yourself PPS time that's available to the PC. There's also NMEA time, National Marine, and something. It's a timestamp that comes through GPS, which this puts out, and most GPS receivers do. And I've got a GPS receiver here. It also puts it out. This is just a bog standard GPS receiver. It's in USB. Sorry, my cables are a bit tangled up. And that puts out EA. Those timestamps are not as accurate as PPS. I tried to use this for occultations and I concluded it wasn't accurate enough. It gives a very good time, better than MTP, but I don't think it's good enough for occultations, at least wasn't good enough for me. For the occultation community, the Shell Gap Time Box 2 is available. That does a very similar job to the GPS PPS, and it has the advantage that you don't need to sit through a workshop an hour and a half long or go through quite a number of pages of documentation to set it up. It's pretty much a plug and play unit with its own software, but it does the equivalent job of the GPS PPS. That's about 160 or 170 euro. You get it into the country for about $300, and then you can do the same timing. We have to use the same techniques to deal with camera acquisition delays. So if you want to get one of those, you still need to follow parts of this process. So there's basically a family of devices that share a common kind of process, and that gives us that GPS PC discipline timing. So the Shell Gap Time Box, I do recommend it. If you don't want to build one of these, and persuade me or somebody else that has some basic skills to build it. It is a very simple build. It's just a couple of solder joints and drill a few holes, and that's about it. But that's not for everyone. So the Shell Gap Time Box was actually built for occultations. And does anyone know how many of them are in use? Because it gets on the reporting form, there's a space borders in there. So we should be able to know.
And what's the PC interface on Shell Gap? USB?
That's USB.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely clear if it actually sends a PPS signal through the USB or disciplines the time through the USB. I have talked with the designer quite frequently. I couldn't quite figure out.
I can see how all the serial ones work, but how many machines have serial ports?
That's the issue. You could do this, and GPS PPS was a reasonably common method for occultations and other timing, and the serial port disappeared. The brief history on the method, it's always been available to the operating system, but once Windows came along, the support disappeared and the serial port disappeared. There's been open source groups that have been trying to keep it going, but recently with Windows 8 and Windows 10, there's drivers which can use the USB to receive the PPS, give it the priority it needs to actually work again. So this is what it does, it supplies it through, and it's fully supported by the MTP software. Okay, carrying on. Look, I'm talking too much, and this is meant to be a workshop. Okay, so how does the discipline actually work? So we'll be using NTP, specifically the Mindberg distribution's other software. What it does is it checks the offset between the PC clock time and the time source, and if it sees that it's different, then it adjusts the clock rate of the internal clock. It makes it run a little bit faster or a little bit slower to bring it back into line. So it's kind of like taking a dog for a walk. The dog gets a bit too far out, you sort of rear the line on a little bit and then let it go. And then, it's that kind of fucking. And only will do a hard set connection, like actually abruptly changing the time if there's a large time error or if you tell it to do so. Because it's often a bad idea, particularly in the financial system, to suddenly add 1 second to all of your timestamps or overlap them or whatever. Most PCs don't have a independent real-time clock that's temperature compensated. So your PC time will vary by temperature and it will vary by processing load. How much it varies will depend on each individual PC. That's something that you do need to understand. That's an 8 or 9 year old HP. It drifts quite a lot. I've got other computers that drift a lot less. So that kind of drift rate is temperature dependent. So one thing to watch out for, I've seen, I think observers do this, is they measure their camera offset on one of their systems, maybe any NMA time, and if I'm great, I'll synchronize my time to exactly 0 milliseconds, where now I've got a 10 millisecond delay, and then they start recording at 40 frames per second, and the processing load goes up, and the clock starts running faster. And then your time drifts a little bit. So I've actually done a detailed GPS flash time analysis on NMEA timing, and on my system, I was getting variations of plus or minus 5 milliseconds using NMEA. But there's people out there in the occultation community swear that NMEA time is accurate to better than 1 millisecond.
No,
That has not been my experience.
sure.
So you do have to consider how these systems perform in reality, and the bench test or calibration is not necessarily the answer. Okay, carrying on. We have to account for GPS camera timing delays. So with the PC discipline, we get the time nicely locked down. So that's great. We've got accurate time and we can do it. And then these cameras have got delays. These systems with the CMOS cameras, they have a delay in the camera and there's a bit of a delay in the USB interface. But the timestamp that we actually get on the recording is when the software receives the frame. And I've talked with Robin Glover from SharpTap, and this is what it does. As soon as it receives the frame and says, "Are you ready to pick up the frame?" that's when it grabs the timestamp. So it's not when the frame started exposure. It's not when the frame ended its exposure. It's when the frame went through the USB interface and was available through the internal CPU, and the CPU cycle got to a place where it says, "Here's your frame." So that's where the timestamp. So there's a delay in there, and we have to measure it. Unfortunately, GPS flash timing, something like this, below low monstrosity, or if you have a IOTA GFT or a stamp of approval or whatever, you can do that measurement. So when you do that measurement, hopefully we'll get to that today. You'll get a series of flash pulses. I've got a worksheet that can analyze that to measure the line delays. If you have a volume shutter camera, delay varies by depending on which line of the sensor you read. So the top line of my sensor is about 15 milliseconds difference from the bottom line of my sensor. So I have to know the position of the star and then have to calculate the delay at that point. Maybe it sounds difficult, it really isn't. And this is out of my little worksheet. So I've measured the camera delays for the 2 cameras that I use at the settings that I use, because it varies by the settings. And I've done a measurement of that. You know, this is just a little calculator. So either in SharpTap or in Tangra, I just find the Y line, plug it in there, it tells me what the camera delay is for that, and then I can enter it. So those are the 2 main parts of it. Yeah, so you have to measure those delays independently. Just because your PC clock is disciplined does not mean you have an accurate timestamp, because there will be a delay on it. And GPS flash time lets us do this. It pays to do this periodically just to make sure that the camera is still performing the way you thought it was. I have no evidence that the line delays on these cameras change over time, but it's not guaranteed.
Is it going to the same delay irrespective of exposure time? Like if you did a
Yes.
100 millisecond exposure versus a 500 millisecond exposure?
Yes, it's down to the transfer.
This transfer.
That's the data transfer. So it's independent of exposure, and that's the saving grace. If we had to do this for every single exposure you had, you'd have to have a measurement for every single exposure you're looking at. And I don't think I bother. But basically, these are the settings that I use for almost all my observations. If I'm doing bright lunar, I've got another setting for a smaller region of interest so I can get the frame rate, and I just do that. But then equally, if, as happened with Mike Skrutsky on his observation, he changed his region of interest in between observations. So he actually took his stimulus observation at a different size, and then he just remeasured the delay and then applied that. So you can do it retrospectively if you need to. But to keep it simple, just choose 1 or 2 camera settings which kind of work for you, and just stick with those. Yeah.
What about the USB port you're using? There's a fast one or a standard, USB 2 or USB 3.
USB 3 would be better.
Yeah.
I'm using USB 3. I don't know the performance of USB 2 because I haven't tested it.
Well, I've had trouble with the QHY camera because it's linked with the computer's more than 3 meters.
Yep.
And, not
Yeah,
quite sure where I am.
yeah, there's a limit to how far a camera cable can be with USB. If we need to use a USB piezo interface, that seems to work okay. It delays through a USB extender.
Yeah.
Don't seem to be significant.
Okay.
Yeah, but once you've got the setup, you can test it for yourself because you've got GPS flash time and you can try it with different ports, you can try it with different cables if you want and check and see what's doing it. I found it to be quite consistent. Okay, so reasons for using PC discipline opens up to use any camera. So for new observers, particularly if you're an existing astrophotographer or planetary imager, you can just use the camera that you have. You don't need to buy another camera. So it's cheap and easy for them to start. I think Victor can say that's the reasonably easy. Easy enough. Once you get PC discipline set up and you've measured your camera delays, you can use it remote and unattended. So you don't have the GPS flash every time. So that is a good option there. It also maybe opens up the possibility of using this at a subscription telescope service. If you can persuade the operator to install the timing. You're probably going to shell your time box rather than some random red gold machine, but there's those possibilities. Also for things like flood observatories and major telescopes, it could be an option to actually use them for occultations without having to make major changes to the setup. If they've already got a camera, all you have to do basically is do something on their PC recording. So hopefully we can get this going at North Astronomical Society's Zeiss telescope. What's the Zeiss telescope specs, George? Don't know. 0.5 meters. 0.5 meter telescope. Sitting in Auckland, not doing occultations. Not yet. It's on my plate. We'll get there. And another key thing, even if you don't use this to time your occultations, if you get one of these systems, even just an NTP, you've got an independent time source on your PC. So you have some ability to check whether the times you're getting from another device are actually correct. You've got a completely independent time source. And that's something I think is really important for the reliability, because you get time out of your QHY camera or whatever. And how do you know that's correct? You just, it's just a number. If you've got another independent time check, then you've got some confidence in that. And with the GPS flash timing, you can actually do some testing of timing accuracy. So once you've got this set up, you're actually in a position to do some testing of other devices. Right, so we'll crack in. I really do not know how this is going to work. If it turns into chaos, hopefully Steve will tell us and we'll do something different. But please just speak up. It is meant to be hands-on, so we'll try to get people installing stuff on their PCs. I can see there's a handful of people that have got a PC that they might want to do something with. So maybe practically we might need to get a couple of people around each PC so they can kind of see how things are going.
You need internet with this.
Yes, we will need some form of internet connection.
There's some Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Yep. And if you haven't got Wi-Fi, you can use a hotspot on your phone. You can still get good UTP sound through.
The Wi-Fi details are on the piece of paper behind the mic.
We'll just wait for that. We aren't quite ready.
Yeah.
So for people that are offline, just work. If you want to do this yourself, just work together as best you can. I'll be giving sort of the major stages and pointing to the documentation. We'll be working in the room. Is there audio on?
And then they're hearing us on.
Can we hear them?
Yeah, they might yell out if they have a question.
Yep. So just feel free to yell out and say, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah. That sound like a Dalek invaded, but yeah.
We'll see how we go. Okay, so first thing is to set up NTP timing. That's just software. That's pretty easy. We'll cover how you operate and monitor NTP timing. Then we'll see how you add GPS or NMAA timing into that system. And we've got a number of test devices where you can get that and hopefully get it working on your device. If we get through all of that, then we can start to look at how you actually measure camera acquisition delays with the GPS flash timer. And got a number of highlight goes here that I'll let you loose with a craft knife. And Some stage, I'll show you what the full recording workflow looks like. I promise you it's very easy, and the workshop might make you believe. And if we get some time, we'll discuss some of the issues that can occur with Windows that you need to be aware of. So we've got some key documents. So online, are people online able to click on those links?
No, they're not. They're not active. I think if you take it out of full screen, then I think the links become active.
Okay, I think I'll leave that for Steve to do. Sorry, I'll just go.
Or maybe copy and paste them into the chat would be better.
Okay, we can do that. I did share those links in a message on the.
No one if that reached everybody.
Yeah, that won't have got to everybody. In the room, I have these on desks, and we can make a start. So the first thing is to get going with that. Steve, could you post those links in the chat?
So I'll do that now.
Yep, just so we can get those. Okay, so who's trying to do something live on that laptop? Two, three, it's Steve, are you going to do it?
Would like to, but it's that laptop. It's the Zoom laptop.
No, why would that stop you?
Because I've been doing other things.
Or catch fire.
What is that? Held in by blue tack?
It would appear to be so, yeah.
Oh, right. You need internet access. This is link. That's the network we are looking for.
Looks like you need more.
And that's including a full stop.
Got shut here. Well, don't bother me if I just that phone.
Play a full stop. Okay, it didn't work when I read about the full stop. Got it? Yes. Yeah. Look for your go onto your Wi-Fi connection. Look for a real truck. Real truck. Make sure you get.
So those two links files should now be in the meeting chat.
Thank you.
He's got. Yeah. Yep, there's. And then second.
That's the Wi-Fi.
Try and break into this series.
Yes. It is. It's got me. So make sure you get the red training. It's also a red ad. That one. God, they weren't pinned.
That's my PC display sterile. Red Monberg.
That's not particularly helpful.
It is really hard. I need new glasses because of them.
Okay, anyone else?
Okay. No, I think I will leave my lock there. I won't try to. I'll just pay attention to it and get home something.
Oh, yeah. Just on
Basically, I think the cat portal one's a keeping account of that one connected.
With the files on.
I haven't got the publishing one. So I'm going to do some problems. I don't comment. These help. I can't see my next. This is what I was to see. Yeah, we picking action ready. So, yeah, that's almost. See, you make them up there, but the figure is going to be small.
So that's why I said,
Yeah.
not seeing anything, but.
I don't know, the yes,
You're doing real off black here.
So the Wi-Fi.
It's 2 days ago, I was like,
There. So it's all
we're not sharing at the moment. Other than the Weinberg, I think it's been shared, but not necessarily that.
Okay, change to share.
was thinking of using the source. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like to.
Probably could do honest me.
pretty much. Yeah, that's right. Just like so yeah, so anyway, the other thing is to bring
So we're sharing that now.
Yep, okay, so we've just distributed the files. Okay, how we doing?
That's all right.
Right, has everyone got the files? Read them? Okay. So there's a document here which is many pages of documentation. There's a section on the NTP. Got the instructions here. You can follow either one. You should have this, the Meinberg installation software, which I'll just try and see what it looks like, what the file name is, because that escapes me right now.
Need to get back up there.
Okay, there's a file called, I'll just drag it across so we can see it, hopefully. So this one here, that's the NTP setup. It's called NTP numbers setup.exe. And it should just be a default installation. And I'll look over someone's shoulder when I do that. Steve, how many runners on yours?
Well, it's already there.
Okay, you've already got it. That's fine.
One big's already on there.
I'll look over someone's machine that was running. So
The runners as administrator, didn't you?
Yes, you do.
You don't run as administrator?
You do it.
so is it?
The other is.
This one is given license and then she said it. Well, it's in the lion's door.
If I assume this is a green one for a test.
You can see.
I haven't run into a media set. Just a little bit. Those been installed.
It's in place, got full access to it, which is.
Laptops never had anything unplugged. Yeah.
I put my. It just needs to run.
I'm not entirely sure.
Most of the sometimes maybe it's all facilities will work well.
Yeah, of course, it's still easy.
Okay, just everybody. Yeah, it's gonna happen. Okay, so you get various options under there. They ask you to specify a pool for the service. This is the regional pool where the servers are located. So I'm not entirely sure where the best place to install NQK is. Sometimes you run into problems that you need access that the folder may not give you. I've had success under C folder, root folder, or desktop, but everyone's PC is going to be different. Let's try it and just see what happens. There may be an option to override system time, and there's an option there for the server pool where we want that for us to be Oceania. So we actually get time servers that we can connect to. Anybody online, just choose your local regional pool. There'll be a European pool, an Asian pool, a North American pool, and so on.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like someone's putting you in there, so.
Okay, so the Oceania pool systems, the whole folder ones.
So I don't need other ones.
So we'll do that later. Next week. Back in the microphone. Okay. So that was the first screen. Everyone should select actually on that poll. Otherwise, if you have to go overseas and who knows what will happen.
Which one of these should I be running?
No, it should. Okay, it will run itself in the background. That's the start and stop the service. Probably starts on
Where does
Running. Not done.
Okay, so that was the signature by the turn each now, if it's running.
Yeah.
Because I'll just run through, try and get everyone built on the same stage. So
Good question.
So I should use. But that.
Wrap up. Somebody
Okay. Exactly. Okay, how are we doing? We have these files. You guys are the files like there's instructions. Cool. Right, next stage, it's stable with the disabled, I think, time services. Should stay. Okay. Shots There's a screenshot of each action. Probably into that. Years and it might be a sort of nice license video and what jobs and those still that's right. Okay. Was it running? Yeah, something like installing mine, starting again. That's just that's the this is the stage. So there's a samples of actions. So this is what methods just so it's like a time that feel it's really it's a lot easier to correct. I see this wrong. Should be in it. Now that you set up I was just here the plan. I'm just on that. Yeah. That's an awkward. Should I get that's a question. I think it's been a couple of we're really good ones.
USB one end.
Wow.
Thanks for that. Set the USB flash out.
Couldn't buy one of them for a week and a half.
From what I understand, you hold in front of your telescope. I'm sort of thinking, well, that's the must. What if you don't hold it right next? I check up in the beam. Okay. This is so small. I'd prefer that it's not just a little dot corner so you can have it going the whole time. Yeah. So checked all the box. There's a little beam box to on the right next.
Which one? As long as you're times. That much more specific movement. There's some. So a couple of things that should have been. Get out more. She said, because one
Yep, that's working. Okay. Give yourself a hand. That was only slightly scary.
Okay, can I have your attention, please? Okay, so we've got NTP installed and working on 5 laptops. We've got the time source that runs on startup and should keep your PC time just plumb to some milliseconds or tens of milliseconds. From time to time, it'll be a larger offset. How are people going in the room? Does anyone need any assistance? So out of the room. No, haven't heard anyone. Okay. So the NTP service is working. There's Windows command line statements that you can use to pull up status and do things. If you want to use that, you can. There's some basic commands you can use. I prefer to use the time server monitor, which is a Windows application. And that's this next one, NTP time server monitor. So if you just go and install that, then we'll have a pretty interface to work with rather than Windows command line. Well, it will have a pretty interface unless you've done what Steve's done.
Better different color. Unless you really want that nice. Maybe that's what it was. I think you're just on
You've got that machine and not actually expanding.
Put it somewhere.
Yeah, like maximum deal.
This
Super. Those look like tables got scrambled.
that's why it balls. That's it.
Right, this should just be
So that's probably the location.
Otherwise, a media structure just opening up.
Yeah, that's a solution. So they've got some antivirus on it. It's just a thing that's all right for
A lot of similar.
the machines down and melt it. That's like what takes one thing or something.
And it's strong to limit and it's like strong.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah, I agree. That's not what I thought. This is it. No, it's about just sitting there on one screen.
So the bubble like that's still so it's not
Yeah, they much.
now wasting. I just and if I said this, and not had got the first job on the program, you just written. It says now. Just Dave said the other day, some comment he doesn't use commercial lines, right? So because every company is different file. I'm not really sure. This has got Whereas mine is like quite polite. It's got some pause as well. It's like, makes a bit of Thomas. They're not that you're on, does it? But it's not, it's not.
The other one, yeah, no.
You've okayed it, and we can't find anything to ask you.
We need to get on.
I don't know. I read that.
I got the free version, which I think is part.
Very other one.
So no, you've got sound processes.
Start. Okay. Just start.
This is in my whole.
Yeah, I think.
The inside. Died a while ago.
Okay.
You can't actually go install it, reinstall it.
Bring those there. Maybe I don't need to do this and when use this for once it starts off, probably takes a while to know.
Yeah.
I'll explain on that.
Okay, so, and please, because I don't have 15 disgruntled people. Yes, but there's time.
There's still time.
There's still time. There's still plenty of time. Okay, so how are we doing? On my pesky mouse. And close the chat for now. Okay. Right. So this has got a number of tabs at the top. If you go to the NTP status one, you should see a bunch of gaudy colours. Not as gaudy as Steve's one. Okay, and it's all working. I wasn't sure if you had to restart the PCs at this stage, but it doesn't seem you have. So is everyone on that status screen? No. Okay, anybody not on the status screen?
Yeah, I haven't found the monitoring page yet.
Sometimes when you install the NTP monitor, it might not give you a desktop icon. If you press the just some shortcut keys, so the Windows key, and start typing NTP, the app link should pop up. I'll just try and demonstrate on that machine. And I'm not sharing the right screen here to see that.
I'm on there.
I've got the quick NTP status up, so I can see that. So it's running, but that's just on a command line.
Yep. Okay. Have you installed the Mindberg server monitor?
No, so that was the bit I can't find. So that's on that page as well. In
Yeah.
your PDF file?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find where I am. It is in my documentation. I'll see if I can find the link quickly. You got internet connected?
Yes, there's a Zoom.
If you just did an internet search for what is it? Mindberg NTP server monitor, it should pop it up. You can probably find it faster than me.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll be a Mindberg page, and let's just see if I can find it in the icon.
From memory, it wasn't a prominent link on the page, but it was there.
Yeah, I've got it. Okay, thanks.
Yep, cool. Let's race ahead. Yes, previous.
remember a very program that used to do this type of thing, probably not as well as this miserable time. It's like,
Yep.
it's probably about 20 years ago.
Okay, we'll carry on in the room. Has everyone got this screen that looks like this up? Anybody got it? Okay, so we're good. Okay, so there's various tabs along here. This is the NTP status, and you'll see a bunch of server names, a bunch of colors, and all kinds of things like this. The offset is the offset of your PC time to these servers. Hopefully it's in the sort of milliseconds to tens of milliseconds range at this stage. You'll probably see some servers there that have got an offset of maybe 100 or even 200 milliseconds, because we've just grabbed random servers from the Oceania pool of servers. There's hundreds of servers around Oceania. Some of them will be in Perth. Some of them will be in Papua New Guinea. It's like, you know, you're never going to get good time out of those. So what we need to, I'll just give you a bit of explanation of how these work. So along here we have the remote. So that's the IP address for the remote. There'll be one bunch of random IP numbers, basically. Some of them might correspond to what looks like a New Zealand IP address, if you know what one looks like. Anything that starts with 127.127, that's something on the local machine. But it'll be like the PPS device that you plug in or something like that. The ref ID is just a name. You can name them what you want. Stratum tells you how many steps away are you from a UTC national standard server or GPS. So the national standard server will be Stratum 1. The GPS, PPS set up properly will be 0. A lot of your sources will be Stratum 2 or 3. And that's not a problem. The Stratum doesn't really tell you how good the time is. The performance tells you how good the time is. You can have a very badly performing Stratum 1 server. You have a really well-performing Stratum 3. So don't pay too much attention to that. The type just tells you what type it is. Yep.
On your remark, you've got a series of server addresses.
Yep.
And I've got a series of server addresses, and there is no correlation between them, or not at all.
Yep, there will be soon, but not now. At the moment, you set up to use the Oceania pool. So the Oceania pool is just a collection of dozens or hundreds of servers in Oceania, which are made available on a random basis. Now, every second there's millions, if not tens of millions, of calls to NTP servers from devices. Every one of our phones is pinging NTP somewhere. Our computers are all pinging. There's millions of calls. That load has to be managed, so it gets distributed to all these pool servers. But in one of the next steps, we're going to actually pick some specific servers in New Zealand, which will give us much better timing. So that's just a random selection of the pools that are available. And what it will do is it'll monitor them. If the pool looks like complete crap, it'll cut it off and pull another one from the pool. Yeah, but on the pool, you've got no real guarantee of the quality of the NTP server. And I think this is one of the reasons that people have dismissed NTP as a timing source for applications. Because if you just go to the pool, there'll be some pretty shonky servers that you'll get to from time to time. And you don't know what's behind them. Sometimes it's just some 17-year-old kid playing with NTP, setting up an NTP server, putting it in and republishing it, because it's all public NTP. But there are some curated servers in various countries, which we'll get to. Anyway, I'll just finish explaining through here. These ones along here are the ones you really need to pay attention to. So when, that's the number of seconds since it last poll. You'll normally be polling somewhere between 8 and 64 seconds. So if you see hundreds of seconds here, it means you haven't reached that server for a long time. And it may mean that you don't have an up-to-date time. Poll is how frequently it polls or queries a server. So this one here is showing 8 seconds. So I query my PPS server every 8 seconds, and the default server is every 64 seconds. You don't want to be hitting these things too often or too hard through the internet, because you will get blocked. You don't need to ping an NTP server every second. You do that, you'll soon find your IP address is blocked from all kinds of things. 64 seconds is fine. Sometimes you may want to go a little bit quicker. You don't go too quick. Reaches a fancy hex binary code 377
What's the second line?
Yep.
Why is that so far out?
That one is, this is me, one of my many attempts to get my local GPS NTP server working connected via an Ethernet cable. Got a Raspberry Pi with one of these PPS things connected, followed all the instructions. It works. Raspberry Pi is disciplined to like, I don't know, half a microsecond or something like that. But for the life of me, I can't get it to connect to my PC. So if anybody knows how to make networks work, please help me.
So it's 5,000 odd days until it was.
Or default, or it just means it's never connected.
Yeah, it's like
Never connected. And it may mean that it's still initializing the server. The GPS.
Something's going on for the
Michael.
Yeah.
Andrew here, just a question about your NTP server. Have you never got it connected at all, or?
I've never managed to get it connected to my Ethernet, and it's not a discussion for today. I am ignorant when it comes to actual network.
Okay. I was just going to ask if you'd opened all the right ports, but we'll leave it till
Probably
offline.
I tried opening various ports and firewalls and stuff, and I really don't know what I'm doing. And the
I'm getting results from I'm getting results from mine, but they're awful, so I've disconnected it. But anyway, we'll take that up offline.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yep.
So I've set up my own. I've put a GPS module and I've got a PPS flash signal already coming into my PC. Is that what we're going to cover in the next section, or can I ask questions now about how? Because I don't understand why we'd use NTP I already have a flash signal directly into my PC.
Okay, we'll be setting up the the PPS into it later.
Okay.
NTP is one way that you can bring that PPS signal into your PC. There's probably other software, but I basically go by the sort of belt and braces approach. I want to have more than one time source. So sometimes the PPS will fail because you don't get a GPS lock. I've then got the NTP that I can fall back on. This particular setup doesn't tell you that it's still acquiring the leap second. So you don't know at what point the leap second has been acquired. But if you have the NTP servers, you see a minus 3000 millisecond offset and you know exactly what's going on. So I like to have the NTP, I like to have more than one time source so that you can cross-check to see if your favorite time source is working properly. If it's not, you've got a backup. You know, this is just knowing what you're doing. So
Thank you.
Yeah. So we have next.
So the question then becomes, if I'm remote, I'm in the field, obviously I don't have access to the internet.
Yep.
So then the PPS signal is which we'll set up later on, which would be then the primary source.
Yes, it will be. And it will, when NTP starts, it'll just look for all the sources that you've configured. If it can find the source, it will use it. If it can't find the source, it won't use it. So it'll kind of auto reconfigure. If you're going remote, and we had an incident with one of the observers in Adelaide, I think Harold's you're probably aware of it, where they'd made a Raspberry Pi GPS server, and for whatever reason, the SD card shut itself and it didn't work. So they didn't have any timing in the field because they only had a single time source. Now, I'm holding this up here. This is just a generic global sat GPS receiver. You can set this up for NMEA time alongside the PPS, and you can plug both in, and then you have two independent time sources for remote. You can't run two PPS like this unless you do some configuration, which I don't know how to do. So even when you're running remote, I'd strongly encourage you to have two sources. You can also get the NTP server time through a cell phone hotspot. 5G works really well. 4G works pretty well. I don't know how well 3G works. Yeah, so if you're going remote, so have these NTP servers configured, remote hotspot to your phone so you can still get an internet time. Its accuracy is probably not going to be as good as at home, but it will still tell you if you have a leap second problem, if your PPS fails to start, you've still got an NTP timing available, you might save your observation. And especially if you go remote, you know, drive 100 kilometers, your timing fails, and it's like, you know, if you're going to put that much effort, have a backup time source and hotspotting through your phone, it's not going to work in all places of Australia or New Zealand, but it'll work in quite a lot of places.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll carry on.
20 minutes.
Yep. Okay, that went fast. That went really fast.
People are confused equals lost time.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Michael, can you explain the colours?
Yep. So this is here the asterisks, and it will usually have a green color. It means it's using it for time synchronization. The plus sign means it thinks it's good enough to use for synchronization, but it's not using it. If one of these is unavailable, it'll switch to it. And the minus in the red means I don't like the server. I'll try not to use it.
And on the screen, which shows all these things, on the bottom right, there's a thing called legend.
Yes, there's a nice little
Legend
legend.
that you can change the colours.
Yeah.
So do something useful.
Yeah. And the key, this top one here is my GPS PPS. This is the magic 0 time circle or O time circle. It means, oh my God, I've got PPS times in my PC. It's working really well. Okay. There's more documentation on that. On the command line, you can run this call NTPQ minus P. It'll dump the same information just out of text format.
Yeah.
Does this thing have a doc file at all?
Built into it, I'm not sure. There's a lot of documentation on the Mindberg site. Actually. Yep. This is actually public software that Mindberg's done a distribution for. Okay. Next step is getting better servers. Now we've got a choice here. I can either do a little bit more with the NTP configuration, or we can have a crack at the PPS.
Flash.
Sorry?
Where you want to head?
Move on. We can read the documentation later.
Yep, we can have a go at setting up the GPS PPS servers,
Yeah.
or we can go along to GPS flash timing.
If you don't say it, it'll be my say.
And you'll say it's what's wrong.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's fine. I've already voted.
Sorry,
The
the PPS.
PPS please.
Okay, so we'll carry on. There's in the document, there's I think an example configuration file which you can replace some things in the configuration file. You can ask for help online if you want. And this has servers that work way better. I'll just go very quickly. This is the National Measurement Standard server in New Zealand. Connect to this with a small offset, you are traceable to UTC. You are formally traceable to UTC. And I get offsets of about 12 seconds, so an error of no more than 6 milliseconds to UTC by doing that. These are local service to Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch, which gives me better ping times. They've worked pretty well. Australia, you won't be able to get to this. It's geo-locked. You have to find your own ones, but do have a look. And I've got a bit of documentation in my documentation for that. Yeah, okay. So we'll move along. That's all working.
The PowerPoints will be on the website afterwards.
Okay. This is typical for me using the PPS, the servers that I've set up. So ping times of 12, 5, 4 milliseconds, offsets of low milliseconds and fairly consistent. So that's my typical NTP performance from home through Wi-Fi. Everyone's going to be different depending on where you are. So that's how good it can be from home. When people say NTP is crap, it's because they either have got a crap setup or they're just not able to get good pings or selected the right servers. Congratulations. Your time, isn't it? Once you've done that step, it'll be formally traceable. Okay, PPS timing. Okay, this one, NTP recognises this as extremely stable timing and disciplines much more tightly. It usually keeps the time within half a millisecond once it's got running. And it takes, it basically syncs from startup. The only time it hasn't synced from startup was last night. When I had 50 milliseconds, there's a few things that happened last night that maybe shouldn't have happened. Okay. I have hopefully complete documentation on this, which you can follow through. You can certainly ask me for some help and for some instructions on that. So from there, there's the document, and we go to the sections for setting up the GPS receiver on Windows PC. Okay, and I'll just try and pull up that document, and I'll see if my own documentation makes sense to me. And this is also a bit of a test of the documentation, so I very much appreciate any feedback on how this is working. Can't seem to grab this. What's the problem?
No, get rid of that. Try and grab the whole browser.
Where's the, let me grab it.
Deminimize it.
Oh, there we go. Okay. What section did I say we were going to? Anybody remember? Set up the GPS receiver on set the GPS receiver. One piece of feedback is get some done links working within the document. Sorry.
Fast.
Sorry?
You can make it fast.
Here we go.
To be tested in 10 minutes.
Yeah, there's a quiz coming in here.
Okay, so there's a section on here. There was actually a GPS receiver with built-in PPS that you can buy out of Taiwan. There's links in there if you don't want to build one for yourself. I have not tested it, but it should work. That's the internal governs, and some basic soldering gets you there. Okay, so now we have some fun. So there's a driver install to do. It's the D2XX drivers that'll be in this CDM setup zip folder on your drive. So if you unzip that and run the install, then hopefully things will be working.
For those who have used Dave's or take 19 BD, the Twiggy bird out, you've basically already got a same beast at the other end of the code.
Okay, so if you've got, maybe just try without the install.
It worked for me without the install.
Yep, okay, so if you don't have that, get it going. And 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. And Victor has my other one, and I probably really didn't bring it.
Uh-oh.
What's this for? Yeah, so use this. Need a driver, let's just measure find out. Okay. Who wants that?
I don't need to find.
Yeah, just get on what we install and we can always swap them around.
Just what's this, but when you saw one, you don't have that installed up there.
Yes, the stick here.
So you can. Get down.
Yeah, we popped that link in the chat. Or how these first.
They should have.
The documents sort of might be on the extent.
Right.
I do have one more, it just doesn't have a case in the It should just be a simple driver install. It's simple in a workshop, you should never do that. People can tell me when they're done. What's up? You break it already, but
He's broken it, isn't he? Yeah.
instructions.
Where is that? Where is that? File? The files that are all up on the board, like I took drag a column across and I'm all the way to that. I've got to get something else as well.
There's no document about that.
Yeah.
It's on, it's a Google.
Yeah, I'll share.
You can see that you are it's big enough. Drive us through the
And if you want to get
It
yourself.
was from the email advance, we got some free stuff for the people. The workshop.
What build is one of it? Oh, to the action. The last section. Save to
Yes, as well, you would never find otherwise. You're going to draw and stuff.
Yes, the driver
Has
has
been
been
installed.
installed.
Okay, that's okay. Everybody installed? But it's still catching up.
So it's exactly. What driver? Yeah.
Moving on to the next.
The top file. That top file that was on back. The 2, 1, 2, 3, 6, I was still set up for it.
That's very good to see that. Yeah, just keep it.
Okay, we need to check to see we've got the device installed. So we need to go to the device manager. You can get there by press the Windows key and start typing device. And the shortcut for the device manager will pop up.
Right, we're going to start then.
So I'll just race around and let's see how we go.
What's this thing there? I thought about this, but if I haven't had this, let anyone know what it is.
Carry on.
Right, so on the second name, it's usually still the.
I've done the drawing, I still,
The boss, like the might be, it's the driver you use for the nice, it's basically like the problem. This one was scratched, so that's probably needed. Let's see what these are out of the boss.
That's not new.
It's just, this is. That's the slide of that's all over investment. And those are the default things that you want.
Oh, fine. So this is the clip you make with the look, you know, context.
Okay, we'll just have a.
So they can take actually so I haven't that file. So it's not copies. I would literally you guys sitting up there and figuring it's yes,
So the next GPS.
But you don't want voice and drive with the PPS signal, because I like to go on with the serial line. So all you get is the MEO ITOS needs.
Okay, so that box is
GPS. Yes. Serial USB. Is it really not? And how do you get that option? You must be not. There's a nemesis unit set across. Like including the box and expression. Or it's a set of most of them. One solid joint, one solid. But I can make these ones that options work. Don't double down for much as 50 trillion minutes, but that's what we lost. We find out the express. We'll take the chance to do it.
No, that's the last one in there.
Okay, so is that you are wrong? So, just one of those things that really want to change. These are the things that are comfortable.
It's on the city of this. And we'll wear So, yeah.
In the interest of timing, we've got to be out of the building at 4:30 apparently. John doesn't know until about an hour and a half ago. Afternoon tea, probably happen now. We'll have a working afternoon tea while Michael sits around with his dying of starvation or smoking some food. Just so we can keep things skipping along.
Okay, for those that want to continue, under the, here's the Mindberg stuff gone. Under this horrible thing, there's an NTP configuration file, which we need to edit. And if you open up the file with the config text example and folders, you can copy some of that through. So if you just have that ready, we'll copy that through and get the in the right place.
For those who are not active, we put on the computer on the right now. Morning, meeting is on. Okay. So it's something that's the operation of Austin. Oh, okay. Yeah. There's a whole lot of stuff that was set up through there. These are the salts and lots of mine. So which you're not going to use. I just say some trade service. I'll put the guys in place specified. Yeah, for safety. This is
I mean, it's, I've been done before.
Yeah, but I was trying to get that ready.
Oh,
So
I'm actually, I'm not a
really find us.
Dealing with these students. That sets the board rate, some seconds, polls within that seconds, tells it to use the previous rates. And I'm not sure when this one. I deal with that often. I even go into the operating from setting.
Yeah.
One of the things
That.
for requirements. Possible. Which. This was the way. I had could be real hard. Real. Yes, Not aware of my fire license, see what G6 is coming out. Yeah. That's that new knowledge.
Well, we start from
Use that in your something with you as notice the make it create about. No, no, that stuff. Yes. I do have to have it.
so
Yeah. More stuff, sorry. Yes.
So what can happen is it's
Can I ask a question, please?
yes, he'll try and answer.
Okay. So I have the GPS flasher, and my observation is that the flash of an LED out of the PPS pin is opposite to the PPS LED that's on the chip, that's on the board. So basically one is on and the other one's off, which leads me to believe either one or two things. One, I've got to change the polarity of the LED or the signal, or I need to use a different circuit to drive the LED. I was just wondering if you had any experience with that.
We've got some experience. So the Arduino module stays on, the line's on for 900 milliseconds. That's in 2 seconds, goes off for 100 milliseconds and switches back on. The PPS pulse itself goes on and uses 6 seconds, stays on for 100 milliseconds and then turns off. So it's easiest if you want to drive an LED, you've got to be driving it from the PPS. And it's better to use a proper driver circuit with a multi-net, which will run directly to the GPS does. Because it's not the size of driving an LED. It will drive an LED. But to try to also run it through a series of bulk, I'm not sure what's going to work. And it may not run LED fast enough. I have book flashes running straight off the PPS. I'm not
very good at any of that, really.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You probably need area of it.
So what I heard was, yeah, yes, it's a known problem. There's basically a timing difference between the PPS
Yes,
pin and the PPS LED.
yes, it will be. That's probably millisecond, maybe. If you've got an unfortunate LED choice, it might be larger. If you want it to be really small, you need a driver circuit, and stamp of approval and IOTA GFT have designs for a good quality driver circuit to do that. And I think Arts Time, as the latest version, has designs for that.
Right, I'll do that because at the moment they're just one's on, one's off. It doesn't make sense.
I didn't hear that.
I just said thank you. I'll get the driver circuit. I'll find where to get that.
Yep. Okay. Yes, we've got. Okay, so now we have to configure it to user. This is the consideration required. Is we have the files already workshop. Files, on the CD drive. Files. Saving configuration. This will be a couple of items. Those. A whole lot of all sides. Yeah. Okay, so let's complete this little yes. Sometimes come three. I've got no idea what I'm doing.
Let's drawings to close.
As always, recognize it.
These are very sort of. They will double. Yeah. And then obviously there's stairs here. Nothing. Okay, so it's going to complete this need to get because it's already shooting to make it, which is probably the deal without time to do it. Yeah, it's fine. As long as it's somewhat that says this slides.
Yeah, the main thing is work from scratch, I think.
We need one bird for dummies.
People little dummies.
People that really care.
Yes.
Well, that's very good. Right, show next time.
That's the way you've got to go and read the documentation. Or else file the doc.
Yes, Mike's got a.
Yeah. Well, very cool. The closing.
I think so. It's time to close. Yeah, so we have to be able to build in by 4:30. That includes putting all stuff in the dishwasher. So I've got most of it in. But if people could help by corralling their cups and whatnots down there, that would be appreciated. For people online, we're just going to go straight through into the next talk. Locals, feel free to browse. I don't think Dave will be hugely offended if people chew while he talks, unless Dave actually wants to eat.
No, I'm just saying for you.
Dave's had one, so it's okay.
Okay.
I'll get rid of the pretty red Weinberg. So thank you, Michael. That was very enlightening. I need to go home and do a lot of homework because I think I made some wrong turns early. Because you guys went a lot further than I got on a day or so playing at home, which is concerning.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to run another workshop on smaller sections or corresponding to.
Yes.
Just get the word out to the.
Yeah, so that's excellent. So a bit of awareness of what NTP is about and how we can discipline PCs. Perfect.
Yes.
Sorry, if we don't.
You will be billed.
That eventually your or your conversations. Yeah, you've got it to work. We have one success.
Yeah. Cool.